Good evening. My name is Sandra Fritz. I'm the chairperson of the Shrewsbury School Committee. Welcome to our meeting of December 20th. Tonight's meeting is broadcast live on Selco channels 29 and 329 and streamed live on Shrewsbury Media Connections website. I'd like to thank Liz Poplowski, who's helping with us from SMC this evening. First on the agenda is public participation. No one has asked to speak with us this evening. However, if anybody wishes to do so at a future meeting, please contact us at schoolcommittee@, I always screw this up every time, schoolcommittee at, somebody else, shrewsbury.k12.ma.us. Thank you. Okay, next is chairperson and members report. Nothing? Nope, I have something to report this evening. I was a judge at the Sherwood and Oak Spelling Bees, which was, it's always a lot of fun, and I realized I cannot spell. And the Sherwood Spelling Bee was on December 8th, and the winner was Suba Syed, and his winning word was Rascato. And the Oak Spelling Bee was this past Friday on the 15th, and the winner was Arpith Misra, and his winning word was Blitzkrieg. And I'd like to thank the middle school PTO for the work that they do, and Madhu Rajagopalan and his son Saketh, who's a junior at the high school. They basically run the event and volunteer their time, and a lot of work goes into that. But it's really gratifying to see these students who really study and move on to the next level of these spelling bees. So that was a great thing to be able to participate in. And that's all I have. Dr. Sawyer, anything for you tonight?
Yes, please. Thank you, Ms. Fritz. The first thing I'd like to mention is a thank you for everyone who participated and made possible the family dinner event that was held at Shrewsbury High School last Friday evening for the families who are part of our homeless shelter here in Shrewsbury. Wanted to thank from the district, Felicity Boisvert, our district social worker, Dr. Jane Lazard, our Assistant Superintendent for Community Partnerships and Wellbeing, and Jennifer Stern Robbins, who was hired to be our family coordinator this year for homeless families in the school district. They all did a lot of work to make that happen. I want to thank St. Mary's Parish for their partnership, Monsignor Rose and many volunteers there. Everyone who made donations to the town for the shelter families, a lot of those cash donations were used for the dinner. And I want to thank the South Middlesex Opportunity Council, who is the social services agency running the shelter, for their participation and assistance. And then all of we had about 40 some odd Shrewsbury High School students volunteer to be part of that. There was everything from face painting to games to crafts that the children enjoyed very much, and the families did as well. And it was catered from Benny's Restaurant in Worcester, which is traditional Haitian food, along with Wegmans, we should thank as well. They gave a $500 donation of food to make it happen. It was a lot of smiles and lots of faces, and it was a very nice event, so appreciate everyone making that possible. I also wanted to mention that there was an email that went out, I think, to previous donors today, but there is a year-end campaign. It will continue beyond into the new year, but for those who are looking to potentially make a charitable donation before the close of 2023, the Colonial Fund is raising funds for a really extraordinary piece of technology, which is essentially a 3D anatomy table. It's essentially a table-sized with a screen that uses a very significant technology to basically be able to perform dissections and see human anatomy in a variety of ways that is hyper-realistic. It's a really amazing piece of technology that would be able to be used by our biology classes, our human anatomy class, I think our biomedical classes, and as we prepare to, our plan is to implement an innovation career pathway program in biomedical and health sciences. It would be useful in a whole variety of ways. Essentially, every student in the high school at one point or another would be able to utilize it. These are not inexpensive. It costs $80,000. And our goal is to, through a combination of, we're hoping for some business partners, as well as we're seeking a variety of grant funds for our innovation pathway program, But then we're also looking for, each year, we always have a lot of people who are very generous to donate to the Colonial Fund, and usually we pick a different project each year as sort of a focus area, and this is the piece of technology that we think would really be a difference maker and affect essentially all of our students at Shrewsbury High at one point or another once we get that in place. And so look for communications about that coming forward, and if there's information on our school website that'll be available starting tomorrow if people are interested. And that is Superintendent's report this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Sawyer. Our first time scheduled appointment this evening is on athletics sponsorship. Under School Committee Policy 912, sponsorship and advertising. Sponsorships involving an amount greater than $5,000 must be approved by the school committee. Tonight we have with us Mr. Jason Costa, who's our Director of Athletics, along with Mr. Joel Lorino, who is the AVP and Senior Marketing Manager for Cornerstone Bank. And I'll let you surprise everybody with your gift.
Yeah, we're excited. We're going to be opening a new location, our future home at 195 Main Street in Shrewsbury, and we're very excited to be a part of this, and we're looking forward for the partnership.
Yeah, same. I was very excited to connect with Joel a few weeks ago. It's been kind of in the planning for a few months now, in the opening of their business, and we're excited to make them a part of our athletic family and helping out all our athletes at the school.
Great, thank you. And for those watching at home, this is a sponsorship donation of $25,000. It's composed of annual payments of $5,000 for each of the next 5 years, and that will be in exchange for conveyance of corporate logo placement on the Shrewsbury High School Stadium scoreboard. And I think this is just a wonderful way of community partnership and helping us with something that's been, I mean, when we were looking to put that turf field in and all the work that went behind it, this continuing additional money for it is very welcome, so thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any comments from the committee? Lindsay?
No, I just really want to thank you on behalf of all of us, and don't worry, we'll come back again soon for internships for children in your program and other such things. But the public-private partnership has been so strong to support a lot of our programming here. But I know on the athletic side, there are always more things that Mr. Costa is looking for and looking to do, and sometimes we're leaning in directions that aren't always as favorable for him. So it's great to find this additional resource to help fund an incredibly robust athletic program that we're running here, so thank you very much.
We're happy to help.
Dr. Sawyer, any comments?
Thank you. This runs with a long tradition of support for our athletic facilities program up at Shrewsbury High School on the campus there. It's noted in the documentation when you'll take a vote in a moment that the funds would be deposited into the Shrewsbury High School turf field project fund so that we continue to make sure we build up funds to be able to maintain the stadium field and be able to ultimately replace it when the time comes. It's in great shape right now. It's been a wonderful investment for our school district, but this will be able to ensure that we're able to continue to use that for years into the future and make sure it's well maintained. So again, we thank Cornerstone Bank. Joel, we thank you and your organization for your generosity. Appreciate Mr. Costa continuing to connect with different people in the community and make them aware of different opportunities. And I'm sure as we go forward into the coming months and years, there will be other opportunities for businesses and individuals in the community to keep supporting, making those capital investments in our facilities, because that does really make a difference for our program and for our student athletes. So thank you very much. We very much appreciate your generosity.
Thank you.
So we have to take 2 votes on this. And when we're done, I'm assuming this will be a 5-0 vote. I will ask you, Mr. Lorino, to come up. We have a memorandum of understanding, then we can both sign that, and we'll be all set. So the first vote for the committee is a motion to approve the enclosed memorandum of understanding with Cornerstone Bank regarding the proposed conveyance of corporate logo placement on the Shrewsbury High School Stadium scoreboard.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. And the second vote is to accept annual donations of $5,000 each for the next 5 years for a total of $25,000 for the sponsorship, with the funds to be allocated to the Shrewsbury High School Artificial Turf Field Project Fund.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much, and we can both sign this form.
Thank Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much again. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Sign it. I'll give that to you for safekeeping.
Thank you very much.
And next on the agenda is another gift, and this is actually in two gifts to the RISE program. Under School Committee Policy 911, gifts of $5,000 or more must be formally accepted by the school committee. And at this meeting, we have Ms. Belcito, who is our Assistant Superintendent for Student Services, along with Dr. Jane Lazat, who is our Assistant Superintendent for Community Partnerships and Wellbeing. And I will let you explain these two gifts.
Thank you. Well, Shrewsbury Public Schools is very grateful to Mrs. Babs Donahue for her generous donation to the RISE program. Babs kindly and enthusiastically donated $15,000 to provide 1 year's worth of student wages. This will allow our young adults, our RISE students, to be employed at Maple and Main while being paid for their work after school hours. Babs continues to further the mission of her late husband, Jim, who established the Irving James Donahue Jr. Fund. During a recent visit with Babs at our Shrewsbury home, Babs shared the purpose of the fund set up by Jim was to save a life or change a life, and they have succeeded in doing both over and over again. Meg and I would also like to thank Michael Hale, Community Relations Officer at Shrewsbury Federal Credit Union, for bringing Meg, Babs, Michael, and me together recently. We enjoyed our time at our home. We learned that Babs will celebrate her 98th birthday this coming May 17th, and we had a wonderful visit. So we're asking the school committee to approve the gift of $15,000.
Why don't we do that, and then we'll go on to the next one.
Sure.
So any questions or comments on the first gift? Well, thank you to all of you who went out and, seeking these funds again. This is great for those students, because we've all been in the store. It's so nice to see them working, having a great time. And now that they'll be able to get some type of payment for work after hours is great. And I think that builds into this whole, just being part of the community, working and getting out. So this is great and such a wonderful gift from the Donahue family. Dr. Sawyer, any comments?
Just add my gratitude. The Donahue family has been a wonderful philanthropic supporter of the school district. Those in the community may know that the name on the boathouse, the Donahue Rowing Center, was funded in large part by the Donahue family. And then over the years, they've been very generous in terms of supporting our high school rowing team with the provision of racing shells, some of which have been named after various members of the Donahue family, including Babs herself. And we're extremely grateful for their continued generosity.
Great, thank you. Okay, may I have a motion to accept a $15,000 donation to the RISE Reaching Independence Through Supported Employment Program for the Irving James Donahue Jr. Fund to provide funding for student wages for work outside of the school day at the Maple and Main retail business presented by RISE.
So moved. Second?
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Now, we'll turn it over to Ms. Belcito for our second gift.
Thanks. So our family, so my maiden name is Turpin, is honored to donate $5,000 to RISE in Maple and Maine to sponsor a learning space in the building. Our parents, Gordon and Aliana Turpin, raised 7 children. Where investing in education was always their top priority. My mom passed away a number of years ago, but my dad, who's 89, with now 15 grandchildren and 7 great-grandchildren, and my siblings all said thank you and appreciated being asked to come tonight. But as my father said, after all these years of donating to many causes, he's never gone to anything public about it. So with a chuckle, he said he couldn't start at his age. But just the other day, we were at a meeting, and people were talking about being left-handed. And what it meant, and I am also left-handed. And as a child, there was a quote that hung on our refrigerator, and it was held, and my siblings can attest to it. It said left-handed genius, because no one in my family was left-handed, and I wanted to be right-handed like everybody else. My mother said absolutely not. I tried to change it. My mother said absolutely not. But the quote that was held up by this magnet was there, and it said, "To laugh often and much, to win the respect of intelligent people and the affection of children, to earn the appreciation of honest critics and endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate beauty, to find the best in others, to leave the world a bit better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition, to know even one life has breathed easier because you lived. This is to have succeeded. And that was my mom's favorite quote. So I know my family joins me in stating that our parents succeeded in accomplishing all that was in that quote. And we're happy to share and remember our mother's passion for reading and learning and the importance of investing in education. So, thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. And for some of you know, Meg and I grew up on the same street.
Yeah.
The O'Neill family moved down, they were a big family, and then the Turpins moved in. We're like, who are all these? And I'm much older than Meg, but I do remember that big family
Yeah.
being down the street, and what a wonderful gift to give. And you've done so much work, and your husband's done a lot of work. So just such a nice thing for your family to be supporting it, and we're very grateful for it, so thank you. Any comments or questions? Dr. Sawyer?
I just want to thank the Turpin family, and I know that in addition to making a difference for the young people who are supported by the RISE program in Maple and Maine, and all the very many students along the way in many different ways that their family has supported over the years. This is, I'm sure, particularly special to them because of the leadership and the extraordinary work that Meg has done in particular. So it's wonderful to have her family support that, and we're very fortunate to have their generosity. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm very grateful too. Yeah.
May I have a motion to accept a $5,000 donation to the RISE Reaching Independence Through Supported Employment Program from the Turpin family to sponsor one of the learning spaces at the Maple and Maine Retail Business presented by RISE?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you again. and
Thank
to your
you.
family. Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda, we are going to have a report on the pre-K through grade 4 capital planning, as well as information on the statement of interest that was submitted for the Shrewsbury High School. And we'll welcome Mr. Girardi.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fritz. I'll take the first portion about Shrewsbury High School, and then Mr. Girardi will speak a bit about the preschool to grade 4 capital planning process. This is something that's been, was featured last spring at school committee and the select board as well. For those who are not familiar, in Massachusetts, there is a state agency known as the Massachusetts School Building Authority, commonly known as the MSBA. And the MSBA has a budget that consists of a substantial sum of money because 1 penny of every time you pay the sales tax in Massachusetts goes to their budget. But given the incredible demand for school building space across the Commonwealth and the need, and the legislature recently provided even some additional funding, especially with the recent inflationary pressures in the construction industry. But each year, the MSBA solicits what they call statements of interest, where communities submit essentially project applications for the potential of partnering with the MSBA on a school building project, whether that is a renovation and addition, a brand-new school. That's a process you have to go through if you are invited into their eligibility pipeline, as they say. They also have some repair projects. Most recently, the Oak Middle School window project, for example, is being funded in partnership with the MSBA, and roofs and boilers and windows and those kinds of things. But the main part of their program is the renovation, expansion, and/or construction of new school buildings across the Commonwealth. We've been very fortunate that both the Sherwood Middle School project, that was one of the first MSBA projects across the state and the first grouping, because that project was actually submitted and into the pipeline under what was an old state program that was before the MSBA was created. And when the MSBA was put together, they took the projects that were already starting in the pipeline, and Sherwood was among those, that first group. It was an outstanding project, and then more recently, the new Major Howard W. Beale School was also done in partnership, where roughly half of the cost was provided by the state through the MSBA, which makes a huge difference given obviously the scope of the finances of these kinds of building projects. Last spring, you as the school committee and the select board voted to submit a statement of interest for a potential project with Shrewsbury High School. Chronic overcrowding is the second most important element of considering a potential project for the MSBA, only after a building that might be in such poor condition that it creates safety or usability issues. And we have a very significant level of chronic overcrowding at Shrewsbury High School that's well demonstrated, that we are seeking to partner with them on an addition to the high school facility. And, you know, for those watching, we're at, give or take, about 1,860 students right now, and it was essentially built for about, I think it was, what, 1,375, I think was the design capacity for the building. And if you built it today, given other kinds of programming we would have in place there, more intensive special education programming, just was one example, it would actually have a design capacity of about 1,200, 1,250, I believe. So it's and that level of overcrowding, although the numbers may come down a bit over time, we still will settle out as several hundred students, give or take about 500 students above that design capacity. The select board and the school committee saw fit to vote to submit the statement of interest. They actually came in the fall, a team from the MSBA visited Shrewsbury High School, met with Mr. Jardy, myself, Mr. Bzidlo, and Mr. O'Connell from Shrewsbury High School, and then Mr. Baldinger, the assistant town manager for operations, and who else was there? Mr. Oh, goodness gracious, our finance assistant town manager, David
David.
Snowden, thank you. I was blanking on Mr. Snowden's last name, my apologies. Joined them as well because they're looking at financing and what towns have traditionally been able to do and what capacity they have to provide their part of the funding. Mr. Mizikar, the town manager, couldn't be there because he was out of town at a conference at the time. But it was an excellent meeting. They toured the school. They actually brought architects with them from New York State because they have these architects help them go through a process where they visit a number of the schools that have submitted statements of interest to assess their needs. And they want architects from outside of Massachusetts and the region because they don't want any conflict of interest in case, you know, an architect might be working on a building project at some point. And so we met with about 3 or 4 officials from the MSBA, a couple of architects. We toured the building. We explained what the impact is of not having sufficient space and based on the student population we have now. Provided lots of information in addition to what we had already submitted with the statement of interest. And it was a strong meeting. Unfortunately, you know, each year they determine of all the projects that are submitted. In this past year, there were 63 statements of interest submitted. There were about slightly under 30 that they move forward to this, what they call a senior study. That was that visit when they came out to visit Shrewsbury High School. So we already made the cut about half. And then of all those, they ended up selecting 19 for funding. When the MSBA contacted me with a courtesy call to let us know that we had not been selected this year, they made it clear that you know, the information we had provided was compelling. And they reminded me that each year the process starts anew, and communities are welcome to submit a statement of interest again for the same project. In looking at the projects that were invited into their eligibility process recently, a significant number of them had been submitted in previous years. So that's not unusual. There's a lot of demand across the state, and each year, depending on the budget they have, they put together essentially a jigsaw puzzle of projects they think have the most critical need. And that can be, you know, it can be a mixture typically of high schools, middle schools, elementary schools. This year, there were a number of high school projects that could end up being full new construction or full renovation that would be taking up a good chunk of their budget, I think. But my perspective is that you know, we were competitive in the process, is my sense, and based on their criteria. My recommendation is to the school committee and to the select board that we resubmit a statement of interest for the coming year cycle, and we'll find out, you know, in December of 2024 whether that was successful. The rationale that was given as to why we submitted back in the spring this past year hasn't changed, the conditions haven't changed, there's no new information that would make us think that we don't need to have a significant addition put onto the high school at some point to address that overcrowding. And certainly, given the scope of that project, we would want, I believe, the state to be participating with providing, give or take, 50 cents on the dollar for a project of that size and scope. And so tonight, this is just an update on that information. And at some point in the early in the new year, I would plan to bring to you an updated statement of interest and for you to vote and submit. And my hope, of course, would be that the select board would do the same, and we can submit, because both boards' votes are needed to formally put that into consideration for the coming year. So with that, before Mr. Girardi talks a little bit about the preschool to grade 4 capital planning update, might be good to pause and see if there's any questions or comments about the high school MSBA submission at this time.
Yeah, I want to thank you, Dr. Sawyer, and Mr. Collins before Mr. Girardi for the incredible amount of work to put a statement of interest together, certainly, and then for everyone who sort of shepherded us through this process. Shrewsbury has been incredibly lucky that every time we have gone up to ask, MSBA has said yes on the first time, and that is not the norm, and I wouldn't want our residents to think that there's something terribly amiss that they said no the first time. I was looking through, I believe it's 18 communities that did receive funding, 18 out of 350 towns and 450 plus school districts, because regional districts also apply for this same funding sources. And there are only 6 high school projects. High school projects tend to be the most expensive. They're just bigger and more complex. So 6 out of the many towns in our state, I think it's very clear that the inflationary pressures on the building industry writ large have really, made it hard for them to fund anywhere near the needs that we know we have in the state. That maybe everyone will feel better about that sales tax, knowing that a penny goes to fund schools. But last year, the state did, in addition, I want to just appreciate, added additional money out of the fair share allocation to put more money towards buildings, partially because of the inflationary pressure. That was meaning that they couldn't allocate as much money. It wasn't going as far anymore. And so, we are not alone in this problem. I certainly, Dr. Sawyer, you already said it, that we'll bring it forward at a future matter. I was going to ask that we definitely revisit this soon. I think our colleagues at the select board level, I hope will continue to be supportive, because we're not very long from now, we're going to have Principal Bazidlo here telling us about all the things we can't do at the high school because there isn't space when we talk about program of studies. And I don't want anyone to forget that is the reality, that there are things that our community wants and expects to have in terms of education, that without space, there's nowhere to go. And so this is an incredibly beneficial funding source that the state has for us. So I think we got to step right back up to bat, try it again this year go round, and hopefully next year they can fund more than 6 high schools. But if it's only 6, hopefully we're on that list. And so certainly my position hasn't changed at all. And I do just want to acknowledge the work and the partnership. We've had a great relationship with MSBA, and I think they run an incredible program, and I think their standards are high, their expectations are high, but we've gotten a wonderful value out of that partnership. So I really just wouldn't want the community in any way to misconstrue either the need or some negative view by MSBA. It's just so clear that the total amount of state dollars are far insufficient for what we sort of need, and the state of our infrastructure across the Commonwealth is unfortunately poorer than we would like it to be. So thank you very much for letting me wax poetic there for a moment.
John?
Yeah, our space needs don't change because of this. We know that. Our students and staff experience it every day in the hallways. Our staff does an amazing job managing the crowd situation and the course offerings, but we only have so much space to do what we do today. We can't add anything new because we don't have the space. And we know we'll be in the same position 10 years from now, because we know the enrollment projections are what they are. They're not changing. So I think this is the fiscally responsible thing to do. I think we all know it as a town. We know the benefits of, just the Beal project, on time, under budget. If you're telling me, we'll pay 50% of the cost versus 100% of the cost, obviously I'm going to go MSBA route, and I look forward to having us, resubmit in the next cycle. So, and thank you to all who's been involved to kind of push this out there, and I appreciate the MSBA's consideration, taking a look at our space needs at the high school.
And I agree, nothing's changed in the submission, that we still have an overcrowding issue, and the longer this gets pushed out, the more expensive these projects become just due to inflation. And we know the MSBA, like Ms. Heffernan said, is a great group to work with. They watch every penny, and they're on top of every town and city that does get chosen, and there are many on that list who have submitted multiple times. So for us, not to the first time was a little like, oh no, but we do have other, I think this is something that we just gotta keep pushing forward, because the need is not going away, and getting that funding component is a much better way to fund capital projects, so fully support moving forward with that. Anything else on this? Nope. So we can move on to the pre-K through grade 4?
Okay, thank you. Concurrent to the statement of interest for the Shrewsbury High School, last spring, school committee gave the directive to put together a preschool through grade 4 space planning committee to look at the elementary buildings, preschool and elementary buildings, kind of a long-term look at what we need to do, again, to make sure that our facilities are, we are tending to our facilities in a way that's thoughtful and planful moving into the future. So this fall, we put together a committee that consisted of school administration, consisted of each of the elementary school principals and preschool director, parents of each of those schools, educators from the elementary level, school committee members, select board members, again, a really strong cross-section of folks who, who will be making decisions and who will give the right kind of feedback as we're making some suggestions as to where to move forward coming out of this committee. We first gathered back in September, and that was at Coolidge School, and we welcomed Sean Brennan from LPAA to come to us. He's one of the lead architects. He was the architect on the Beale School, and he presented the report on the space presentation that they had done coming out of the Beale School. So we really went through all the different options that they put together as far as elementary schools in that report. And I feel to say that, we worked with Bill Lupini. Bill Lupini is a superintendent coming to us, retired from Brookline Public Schools and some other districts, and Bill is really chairing the work that we're doing on our pre-K through 4 space committee. So we did that work in September. In October, we met at Patton School, and that's where we presented our enrollment projections. So we looked at the 3 different enrollment projections that we use. Again, we presented to school committee on that projection just after that. In December, we met at Spring Street School, and we started to look at some of the different options that that we can look at as far as different variables, different options that could outline schools and whether it could be neighborhood schools, or if we're looking to consolidate some schools together. So different options that we could think about moving into the future as we're looking at potential constructions of schools or redistricting of schools. We have some future meetings coming forward in January and February. In January, we're going to take a pretty good look at preschool. Think about what preschool programs look like currently and moving into the future. And then we're going to have some conversations around what recommendations we're going to make to school committee come March of 2024. So that's just an update on where we are with our pre-K through 4 space committee.
Great, thank you. Questions or comments, Lindsay?
I just one question is, you mentioned that the meetings were happening in different schools, and is the intention there to make sure that all of the members have a chance to spend time in the school? I mean, there are a lot of people in our communities that just drive by them, and so can you talk about what that
Sure.
purpose is, or what you're using?
Thank you, that's a great point. So we were intentional with hosting these meetings at each of the schools. Prior to the meetings, they started at 6:30. At 6 o'clock, we invited members to come and have a tour of the school. Principals gave a tour, really spoke to the features of the school, and spoke to kind of the, how the facility itself leads to the educational plan of that building. It was a really nice opportunity for people to really, see what our elementary schools look like, to sit in the CAFA gymatorium at Patton School and understand kind of the feel of what that is, that the students, experience every day, to really help us make some, decisions around our elementary programming moving forward.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I've had the pleasure of serving on the committee so far, and it's a great cross-section of parents, administrators, faculty, and I look forward to continuing the work that we've started.
I was actually similar to what Ms. Boucher said. I'm excited to see what comes out of this committee. I appreciate everybody that has volunteered their time because it takes away from your family and everything else. But looking at just who, as parents, volunteered and the staff, it's a really nice cross-section of where they have kids, how many kids they have, what their ages are. But it's also nice to have some of these parents that they've had students that have been in a couple of the schools now, with some that started at Patton and went to Beale. So I just want to say thank you, and that I'm looking forward to seeing what comes of that, to discuss the future for the elementary schools.
And I've been on the committee as well as Mrs. Boucher, and I think going to the different schools, and it's eye-opening, if you've been at Beale for a lot of meetings, and then you go to Coolidge, it's such a difference in the school environment, and I think that's what people need to see, the differences in what you can do and what you can't do because of the space. And also looking at this, using the space study, but this is doing our due diligence as we move forward for the pre-K through 4. We're not saying we're going to do X, Y, or Z, but there'll be some recommendations that will come out for the town to look at for capital planning into the future. And I think it's a very measured and thoughtful way to look at this. And talking about preschool, that could be mandated. And then we would have a much bigger number of preschoolers that we would have to put in. Some of these schools, there's no space to put anyone. So I think it's a really good group. There's really good conversations at the table, so it'll be very interesting to see as we get to the end what those recommendations might be to move forward for the community. So thank you. Dr. Sawyer, any comments or questions?
I also want to thank everyone involved with it, and want to thank also Keith Baldinger, who from the town manager for operations, who's been participating, and obviously we're very fortunate that we have a public buildings division that works hard at maintaining our schools. There have been investments, a variety of investments made over time in our elementary school buildings, but as with any situation where you have buildings that are aging, there are going to be needs that have to be addressed over time, and then doing that in combination with what we're projecting for how many students we will have over the long term based on the best projections we can make at this time, and what the educational needs are as well. We know with more demand for English language learning spaces, for example, more complex special education needs. When I think of what Floral Street School looked like when it opened in 1997, when it hosted, what was then the only program for students on the autism spectrum or with similar disabilities, and there were probably about 4 or 5 of those students. And now every one of our schools, pre-K through 12, has one of those programs in the school, and some of them are twice the size. Floral Street probably has well over about 25 students or so with that profile now, but every one of our elementary schools does, and so that requires space. So there's just different use of space as it evolves over time. Technology, of course, when Patton and Coolidge and Spring Street were built, the kind of technology we utilize today in the classroom didn't exist. So retrofitting and all those sorts of things, there's a variety of things we have to look at over time. And then as far as preschool, not only is there the potential in the future for a mandate, that wouldn't surprise me, there's also the question of what families are looking for. And I know right now Bridget Nichols, the director of preschool, is surveying families around what their preferences would be for programming if we could host them. We think that there certainly, anecdotally, is more demand for more days and longer days. And that's definitely a shift that we've seen happening in some other school districts. And of course, if you have a student who goes to preschool 5 days a week, and they go for, let's say, a 5-hour day instead of a 2.5-hour day, where you might have a student in a seat in the morning and a different student in the afternoon, and different students on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday than there are on Tuesday and Thursday. There's multiple bodies that can be in those seats over time and have preschool experiences. If you have one student in that seat pretty much all day, every day, you need more seats to serve as many kids. And so looking at that capacity piece is going to be important for this future looking piece. So I'm curious to see how this evolves. I'll be curious to see what the ultimate consensus is of the study committee. But it's been a terrific group to work with. For people who are interested, there's a page on our website devoted to their work. There's links there to all the materials that the study committee has utilized, including the very exhaustive capital investment and assessment study that the LPAA did for the district a year ago in the town. So again, we're looking forward to continued work, and we will be back in March is the target to bring recommendations. I wouldn't be surprised if we need more than just a couple more meetings to get to where we need to go, but we'll see where we're at in February, and we'll, obviously, the most important thing is to do the work as well as we can and to do it right. So again, thank you, Mr. Girardi, and his leadership on this project, and everyone who's been involved.
Thank you. Okay, next we're going to move under Finance and Operations. At our September 6th meeting, the school committee voted to accept state and federal grants, and since that time, we have 5 additional grants for the committee to review and accept, and I'll let Mr. Girardi explain those.
Thank you. Back on September 6th, school committee voted our annual grant approval for our entitlement grants. Since that time, there are 5 additional grants that we are here today to present to you for your vote to approve. A couple good news stories here. First was a competitive grant, the High Quality Instructional Materials Grant. It's a $250,000 grant that we received thanks to Amy Clowder and her team being really thoughtful about the growth of our literacy program and looking for, again, different funding sources, because we know that the appropriated budget just may not be able to carry everything that we need as we're moving forward with our literacy program. So looking at different sources, Amy and her team put a lot of time into this competitive grant, and we learned on Monday morning, very happy news to begin the week, that we did receive the grant. A few other ones here that, some of them are entitlement grants, which means they're non-competitive, they're awarded automatically. The chronic absenteeism, special education program improvement grant, as we move into a new IEP process, new forms and paperwork that our special education department is transitioning to. It's funding from the state to allow for professional development and training for our staff to be able to transition into that process the right way. The chronic absenteeism grant, this is something that is kind of at the head of the Department of Education this year, is looking at chronic absenteeism, and there's money set aside from the state to have districts work towards monitoring systems, strengthening family and community partnerships for us to take a look at chronic absenteeism and to begin to address it. The MyCap Development and Implementation Grant, that's a $5,500 grant. That's in connection with our Innovation Career Pathways. That's for students to ensure all students graduate from high school and are college and career ready. This allows our staff professional development time and meeting time after school hours in a way that they're paid to move forward with this work. And then an Instructional Leadership Institute participant stipend grant, that's $3,000. We had a group of leaders this past August who went to this conference. It was a grant that allowed participated in some funding to offset some of the costs of that training. So these are, again, 5 additional grants coming to you for you to consider and to approve for approval. And with that, it's recommended that school committee vote to accept these funds.
Any questions or comments? John?
Yeah, and I'd just like to thank everybody involved in securing these grants. I mean, to me, this is $300,000 that we don't need to pull out of the appropriated budget. And there's a significant amount of work that goes into each one of these to state your case. So really appreciate all the work and very thankful for these. Thank you.
I completely echo Mr. Wensky. I want to just also acknowledge that in really every case here, these funds are supporting something we have identified as part of our strategic planning efforts, right? These are not us just chasing the next shiny thing. They're really helping us to double down on stuff that we've already said is important. I'm thinking about chronic absenteeism, and it was only a few months ago that we said that's a metric we should be paying more attention to, and let's look at. So, just really want to applaud all of those at the district level, Dr. Sawyer, who are kind of helping really implement that planning process in all of these different very targeted ways. And I hope you had a very happy Monday. That's a big number, and it's a really great one on materials where we know there's a pretty big ask that was going to be coming at us. So it's just wonderful. Thank you.
And I thank you again. It's work for anybody who's writing these grants. This is above and beyond their daily work. And a competitive grant at $250,000, that's a large amount of money. Like Mr. Wensky said, we don't have to worry about taking out of the appropriated budget. So thank you for everybody involved, and it just shows the district works really hard to make sure that they're getting everything they can in any way, shape, or form for funding. And this is a significant amount that we didn't anticipate at the beginning of the year, so thank you. Dr. Sawyer, any comments or questions?
Certainly want to also thank everyone who worked on these grants. Amy Clouder, in particular, and her team around the instructional materials grant. I mean, that's roughly, we're looking at an estimate of about $500,000 investment in literacy materials next fiscal year, and this would cut that in half, which is a huge benefit to the district. The Special Education Program Improvement Grant, Ms. Belcito and her team put together something that the state would approve in terms of moving forward with the new IEP, which is a requirement of all school districts that will start to go into effect next year, with a lot of training happening this year that enables us to do that in a quality way. You mentioned the absenteeism piece. That was very new news as of today that we're receiving that definitely, and we'll have to determine how to best use that, but I could imagine it will give us some opportunity to connect with families and look at ways to put monitoring and tracking systems into place that are even more effective than what we have now potentially. And then kudos to Dr. Lizotte, Mr. Bzidlo, Ms. Angie Flynn, their team, because the MyCap, My Career and Academic Plan grant is connected to all this innovation pathways, career and technical education work that they've been doing that enables us to start to move forward on that as well. And then again to Ms. Clouder on seeking out Ms. Belcito also attended, and it was at Tufts University in August, a time that a lot of people might prefer to be on vacation, but Ms. Manos, Ms. Daly, Christina Manos, who's the Director of English Language Education, Lisa Daly, who is our English Language Arts Coordinator at the middle level, and there may have been a couple other folks who went, but took time in their summer to look at, what are some ways that we can improve curriculum instruction in important ways. So again, all important pieces. I think that looking at tonight as a whole, there's really three significant ways in which, the three primary ways that we seek funding that does not put burden on the local taxpayer. We had a sponsorship from a local business. We had philanthropic donations from two different families, and now with these competitive grants. And so I think it's a good news story for the school district in all those cases. And just another example, the school committee members, people may not know that a few years ago, we won an award from a state association of business officials for the significant amount of innovative ways that we've raised funds outside of the typical appropriated budget channel. So I'm proud that we continue to do that, and we will continue to find ways to do it, but in targeted ways, as Ms. Heffernan references, based on what our strategic priorities are. So thank you, and we ask that you vote to accept these.
Great, thank you. May I have a motion to accept the 5 fiscal year 2024 grants as presented and use such funds for their intended purpose?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, under old business, at our school committee meeting on December 6th, the committee voted to increase summer enrichment class fees from $80 to $100 per class to increase the number and type of class proposals received and to cover the cost of higher teacher stipends while maintaining a rate that represents a good value for our families. As enrichment classes are also offered during our school vacation periods other than summer, using the same rationale, Dr. Sawyer is recommending that the class fee for all vacation enrichment classes also be increased to $100. And I'll let Dr. Sawyer explain this.
Thank you. This is one of the ones where Ms. Isaacson sent me an email a couple days after you took that vote and said, we should have thought of this because we actually made the recommended motion for the school committee, and we were discussing very specific to the summer enrichment program during summer vacation. But to Ms. Isaacson credit, over starting a couple of years before the pandemic, we started to expand that kind of enrichment programming also to take place on February and April vacations. And there's been demand and interest, and we've had some really successful programs. It is, in essence, the same program, just on a smaller scale. So for all the reasons why we asked you to increase the enrichment classes so we could bump up the stipend that hadn't changed in about a decade for the staff who provide those courses. And Ms. Isaacson started to do the preparation work for February vacation and said, wait a second, the language was very specific that you voted. So all we do tonight is ask you to basically take the same vote, but just use more broad language around vacation enrichment classes, which will allow us to charge that amount for the upcoming February and April vacations.
Great. Any questions or comments? No, there being none, that all makes sense. Okay, may I have a motion to increase the class fee for vacation enrichment classes to $100 per class?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Okay, next, under new business, the state law governing educational collaboratives requires 4 updates each year to member school districts, and this will be our second update this year, and Dr. Sawyer will provide that.
Thank you. At a recent, the last board meeting of the Aspet Valley Collaborative, of which I represent Shrewsbury, each of the superintendents of the districts serve on the board of directors. We received the annual audit report. I'm pleased to report that there were no findings in the sense that there were concerns or issues around the way that the collaborative was running financially over the past year. In terms of the actual financials, there's the entire audit's in the book. This will be posted on our website tomorrow if anyone's interested. But we're able to carry forward a surplus of about 12% of the general fund. State statute and regulation allows a maximum of 25%, so it's about half of what the maximum is. And that is after a couple of years that were challenging, particularly around transportation revenue is a really key part of the inflow of funding into the collaborative. They provide transportation services to out-of-district special education programs for member districts, which were able to get a better deal essentially because of the economy of scale. But as you might imagine, coming out of the pandemic, there wasn't as much transportation happening. There was more remote learning. It was disrupted in a significant way. So I think it's been good that we've been able to weather those couple of years and still have that healthy balance going forward. In terms of I think that there continues to seem to be strong demand for the programming. Tuition, that makes a difference, of course, year over year. That's something that the administration at Assabet Collaborative and the board continues to monitor. But overall, it's a good news story. And I guess the other big piece of information would be that after some difficulty where a contractor defaulted on the project, at the location that the collaborative owns in Marlboro, there's it's essentially an office condo type complex. And some space that was being renovated to be able to offer larger level of transition programming there. Just was in limbo pretty much all of last year, and it's now it's close to being completed. That will also allow for rental of other space there for professional development. That's another service that it provides, but it hasn't been able to really provide it as much because they're using the space they would typically use for trainings that people like, because Marlboro's a centralized location. It's a desirable spot, but they've been using it for student services while they're waiting for this other space to be completed, which I took a tour of it when I was there last, and they're making some excellent progress. So there's a lot of detail in the audit, of course, but I think the overall picture is that The financials are solid, and, year to year, as a state requirement, these audits must be completed. They're done very thoroughly, and then they're reported out publicly back to each of the school committees of the member districts. So that's a summary, and I'd be happy to answer any questions any committee members have.
Any questions, comments? It's always good to have an audit with no issues.
I agree. I agree.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next we have our minutes from our school committee meeting held on December 6th, 2023. Are there any changes or corrections? No. There being none, those can be marked as accepted as distributed. And we do need to go into executive session this evening for the purpose of addressing Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A7, to comply with or act under the authority of any general or special law or federal grant and aid requirements. Purpose 7, Open Meeting Law, Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 22FG, for the purpose of reviewing, approving, and/or releasing executive session minutes. And B, for the purpose of addressing Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect of the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. Purpose 3, the Shrewsbury Education Association, Units A and or B, the Shrewsbury Paraprofessional Association, and/or the Cafeteria Workers Association, where deliberation in an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body, and we will return to open session only for the purpose of adjourning for the evening. May I have a motion that we adjourn to executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote is required. Mr. Revapour?
Aye.
Mr. Wensky?
Aye.
Ms. Boucher?
Aye.
Ms. Heffernan?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Thank you and good night.